everybody, and welcome to the show. We have a new intro, which at this point in time, as we're recording on Monday afternoon for Tuesday's posting and on Facebook, I haven't seen yet. How did it come up?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We can easily revise it if you don't like.
Well, what we're going to do, because the old one has been there for quite some time. If you're listening to us on a podcast, it doesn't much matter, but on the Facebook page, we had this standard opening to the show with my old theme that I've used for years and years and years, called They're Playing Our Song. But somehow that got wiped, so Pete came up with this sort of standby till we're going to get a drone to fly in. It does sound rather grand, doesn't it?
I'm looking forward.
I like that. It's going to fly in over the cars and show you a bit more of the garage. Anyway, I'm Jeremy Cordo. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. However you are receiving this, lovely to know that you're there. Just a few moments before we walked into the garage here Monday afternoon, we saw that Steele Hall here in South Australia had died. Pete, what was he, 95? No, former Premier, a very interesting man, very significant man in the development of South Australia. Married to Joan Hall, who used to work at 5AD, and I think also 5KA. Very nice people, very nice people. Sad to hear that. Congratulations to everyone who was recognised in the King's Birthday Orders of Australia. How do I put this? I think generally these orders should be for those unsung heroes in our community who go pretty much unrecognised much of the time. Now, I have my Order of Australia, which I value very, very much. But I got that, I think it mentioned services to broadcasting or something, but it was mostly because of the work that I did in the world of charity. Things that you don't get paid for that are not your job, I think are the things you should be recognised for. Because there are so many unsung heroes and heroines out there who never get noticed, but work tirelessly. It's become customary for ex or former politicians and judges and generals to get a gong. But this award to former Victorian Premier Dan Andrews is a big mistake. I don't know how it's going to blow up because it only turned up this morning. I think it'll blow up big. It's going to annoy a lot of people, and it will devalue the honours system. Recognised for his eminent service in the areas of health and infrastructure, former Victorian Premier. Now, it is popularly recognised that the Andrews government mishandled the COVID crisis significantly. Andrews' ring of steel. He closed down playgrounds and told children they couldn't go on the swings. Now, you can't gild the lily. It was a disaster which did more harm than good. Victorians suffered more than anyone because of the decisions of Dan Andrews in that pandemic. Then his shocking record when it comes to infrastructure development. Mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, a very costly legacy that the people of Victoria will be paying for generations to come. More debt than all of the other states in Australia put together. And for this shocking list of failures, he was given the highest King's Birthday honour, the AC. In effect, Andrews has been rewarded for a series of terrible failures, failures which eventually drove him from office. And remember, he is the man who did away with women's spaces. I don't know that people remember that all that clearly, but what I mean when I say women's spaces, I mean he determined that a woman could not have the privacy of a toilet or a change room. This, of course, was called progressive. That decision alone should have sent him to purgatory or something more serious. And with Labour still in power, of course, that law remains. See, if I was a woman in Victoria and I was told that some guy who decided to call himself a woman could come in, take off all his clothes and invade my privacy and space, simply because Dan Andrews said he could, I think that would have me out marching or demonstrating or doing something. This electric car nonsense continues. Oh boy, does it continue. The Americans, I told you this when we were talking around the dining room table on Friday, that's when I think I heard the news, the Americans hitting the Chinese EV, electric vehicle industry, with a 100% duty. 100%. Look out, Australia. You know where they're going to be dumping these cars? They're going to be dumping them right here. And it doesn't worry this government one bit if they manoeuvre or try to manoeuvre us into buying these white elephants. They cannot see beyond their ideology. It's amazing. It's like The Voice, just driven, determined. Another lithium-ion battery fire here in Adelaide last weekend, left on a charger in a storeroom, I think. $50,000 damage. And in the commercial break that followed the story, which I saw on Channel 7 News on Sunday night, there was an ad for a lithium-ion battery recall. These are the big ones, declaring how dangerous they are. And if you've checked, go and check again. Now, I think they were probably asked by the authorities to run these ads, and to their credit, they do. But there they are, declaring how dangerous they are, and I imagine they're still being sold. Why are we being told that the use of batteries is normal, desirable, and green? They're okay, when clearly they're not okay. We are being conned, ladies and gentlemen. It's all part of the climate nonsense, which the media won't question. Grow some newticles, for God's sake. Batteries are dangerous to have and a problem to dispose of. How we recycle them in the future, I've got no idea. They don't sort of look that far down the track. I quote the Sydney Morning Herald, which you can check for yourself. Over the past year, there have been over 1,000 lithium-ion battery fires around Australia, costing millions and endangering life. It was a big story in the Sydney Morning Herald. But you see, the funny thing is, they'll run that story, but the media won't generally tell the emperor he has no clothes, standing there stark naked and exposed. It all comes back to this climate hysteria. The Libs say to go along with the carbon reduction, well, it was more than a carbon reduction, it was carbon abolition, which was all agreed to in the Paris Accord, so we would get rid of all of our emissions by 2030 or substantially get rid of them, the Libs come out and they say, no, we can't go on agreeing to that because it will bankrupt the country. Well, God bless you for being honest. But by and large, it can't be done. And I'm sure the Labor Party know that it can't be done. So what's the point of an unattainable goal in the first place? Labor is totally, ideologically invested in this rubbish. Now, they both can't be right. Liberal, Labor can't both be right. But hey, listen. This government has one, or I should say, should have one responsibility. And that is to us. Not to Paris, or the socialist collective, or the radicals of the world, of the Greens, of the... I suppose most countries have a Greens party. Most countries will not destroy their economies just to satisfy some distant and irrelevant political agreement, whether it's signed in Paris or Nuremberg or wherever the hell. And as for Australia, will we simply sit there and let these ratbags in Canberra destroy industry, bankrupt the economy, create massive unemployment, to achieve absolutely nothing? Nothing. You see, it doesn't matter what Australia does or doesn't do. We have no effect on world pollution. 1.3% ain't going to move the needle. We can do anything or we can do nothing. And it means absolutely nothing. But we will throw the whole country under a bus. And we have a media too stupid to point this out. Here you will get it, but you won't get it on the popular media when you turn it on. And don't tell me, oh, Labor wouldn't do anything to destroy jobs. Well, look up the Lima Declaration. You can Google it. Look up the Lima Declaration. This is where Gough Whitlam and Lance Barnard got on an aeroplane, flew to Lima in Peru, signed Australia up to divest itself of our manufacturing industry in favour of third world countries, peasant economies like, at the time, China, Korea and Vietnam. This was back in 1975. And you can, as I say, look it up for yourself. It cost millions of jobs. Up until this time, we made everything. We were totally self-sufficient. The great pain here at home that this caused was done with the help of the unions. Of course it was, because the trade union movement owns the Labor Party. They could have stopped it in the interests of their members. And you know why they did all of this? It was in the name of modernizing the economy. Whoa! Not having a manufacturing industry is modern? That's insanity. Total insanity. Now here's something we should take seriously. We'll talk more about this on Friday around the dining room table, jeremycordeaux.com, 9 o'clock till 12, where we can take calls and interviews and have a bit of live fun. Too much time on social media can shrink your brain. Now this was particularly with regard to kids. But anybody of any age is vulnerable to the same thing. But it is particularly dangerous for children. Knowing this, I would have to sort of say to the South Australian government, good for you to actually impose a 16-year-old limit on people, when I say going to, I mean people don't just go to social media, they become obsessed with it. That's the problem. It is dangerous. We'll talk about it in more detail on Friday. It's a Macquarie University study, so they've obviously gone into it. I'm sad to see that a beautiful little shop, a family business in Seaton, is closing down after, I think it's 50 years. Uggs to You, it's called. You may never have heard of it. But they did some interesting stuff. Uggs to You. They've been famous for Ugg boots for all these years, exporting them as well to the Americans loved Ugg boots. The Canadians loved them, warm as toast. Now, I don't know what difficulty they ran into, but look, I'll miss them. I think it's so sad every time I see a company here close its doors for one reason or another. It's sad. It's the closing of a chapter. Now, on the huge debt that the government here is running up on our behalf, they will tell us it is to benefit us. It's on our behalf. $44 billion here in South Australia. $44 billion and counting. Because next budget, well, I'm sure they'll add to it. This is generational debt. Now, I heard this. Let me repeat it, if you didn't see it. These investments are about South Australia's future. A statement from one of Labor's front bench ministers. These investments are about South Australia's future. Listen, ma'am, I mean no disrespect, but you can't invest in anything with money you don't have. Borrowed money. And at this media conference, not one journalist pulled her up and asked her to explain. You can't spend to invest. Well, look, you can spend to invest, but you can't do it with money you don't have. You're just driving generations ahead of us into debt. And you are managing the business, the really big business called South Australia. Look, I'm sorry. That's just plain irresponsible, and the media is irresponsible for not questioning such a stupid thing. The South Australian government must know how much money it has. It's a definitive amount of money. It can't then go out and say, well, we want to do this and this and this and this and this. We'll just put it on the cuff. Oh, I mean, we'll put it on your cuff. You can't spend what is not yours to spend. You live within your means. That's what we all do. No one gave you a mandate to push us and generations to come into debt. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. Really big question is, did I bring my glasses? Yes, I did. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm still not used to these things. Glasses, I mean. Where are we? It's the 11th. The New York Times reveals an estimated 500,000 song titles, including masters of Chuck Berry's, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, lost in 2008 warehouse fire on the Universal backlot in Los Angeles, 2019. Gee whiz. June 11, this day, 1963, US President JFK says that segregation is morally wrong and that it is time to act. The Trojan War, 1184, this day. You know, that's when they brought the horse in. The Trojan horse. I like to think that perhaps the voice referendum was the closest thing that you or I will ever come to a Trojan horse. 1184 BC. Troy is sacked and burned because basically of the naivety and stupidity of the people of Troy. Be careful of Greeks bearing gifts, I think. Oh no, I'll just be careful of anyone bearing gifts. If it sounds too good to be true, ladies and gentlemen, it usually is. John Wayne, American actor, Green Beret, True Grit, dies of stomach cancer. He was only 72. 1979 was the year. Now, there was an actor. Well, he wasn't actually an actor. John Wayne, he never really acted. He just played John Wayne. He was just this larger-than-life character. Margaret Thatcher is the first British Prime Minister in 160 years to win a third consecutive term. The Iron Lady returns on this day in 1987. Continental Congress creates a committee to draft a Declaration of Independence. The year was 1776. This was the day. Not too much before Australia was, when I say settled, depending on your point of view, invaded, occupied, I don't care how you regard it, but it is what it is, and it's history. 1776, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert R. Livingston were members of that committee who drafted the Declaration of Independence. Geoff Ogilvy, Australian golfer, born Adelaide, South Australia, this day in 77. He won the US Open in 2006. 8 PGA Tour titles as well. Gene Wilder, American actor, Blazing Saddles, Willy Wonka, and the Chocolate Factory, The Silver Streak, young Frankenstein, born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He died? I didn't know he died. Gene Wilder. He died in 2016. He was born in 1933. The World Health Organization declares H1N1 swine flu to be a global pandemic, the first such incident in over 40 years. That was this day in 2009, and a bit of an indicator as to what was to come. Jacques Cousteau, he was great. French oceanic explorer, Calypso, born in France. He died in 1997. We used to talk to him quite often. Jacques Cousteau. He was born in 1910. King Henry VIII, he was only 17. He marries his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. She was 23. Widow of his brother Arthur. 1509. God, it gets complicated, doesn't it? Brothers John and Clarence Anglin and fellow inmate Frank Morris escaped from Alcatraz Island prison, the only ones to ever do so. 1962. They never found them. They never found their bodies. They don't know whether they got away or not. They had to swim a hell of a long way to do it. And Hugh Laurie, English actor. Oh, he was funny, wasn't he? Well, Hugh Laurie, wasn't he Blackadder? I think he was. Strapless, Fry and Laurie. Oh, he was Dr. Gregory House in that movie or series on television called House about the doctor. Enigmatic character that he was. Jack Hanna, animator. Oh, yes, of course, Hanna-Barbera. Jack Hanna dies at the age of 90, 1994. Touche Turtle. Oh, there are more Hanna-Barbera cartoons that you can shake a stick at. He made the world a happier place, Hanna-Barbera, the two of them. Thank you very much for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you tomorrow, and don't forget to tune in on Friday, 9 to 12, jeremycordeaux.com. If you go to jeremycordeaux.com anytime at all, by the way, there are a whole lot of previous programs archived in there, which you can see if you want to. We get up to mischief. Well, if you can't get up to mischief, it's not very entertaining. And I promise you we'll be entertaining. Thank you very much. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, Peter Clayton, and I'll be back tomorrow for our Wednesday podcast and Facebook posting. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.